The great chamber fell silent as Council Chairman Vextar stepped onto the speaking platform. His 6 arms moved in the traditional greeting pattern, while his 3 eyes scanned the circular arrangement of seats. Representatives from 47 species had gathered for the quarterly session, just as they had for the past 200 years. But something was wrong. Vextar's middle eye focused on Section 12, where the human representative always sat. The chair was empty. Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming, who had never missed a session in 37 cycles, was nowhere to be seen. "Where is the human delegate?" Vextar's voice echoed through the chamber's crystal walls. His question carried easily to every corner, amplified by the room's perfect acoustics. Silence stretched for several seconds. Then Counselor Theta 9 of the Crystalline Mind spoke up, their voice like glass chimes in the wind. "Chairman, our records show no communication from the human delegation regarding absence or delay." Vextar's tail twitched with irritation. Humans were many things, but they were never unreliable. Chen had served faithfully since his appointment, always arriving early and staying late to work through complex negotiations. His absence was unprecedented. "Have you tried contacting their embassy?" Vextar asked. "Yes, Chairman," replied Ambassador Kith of the Zephyrian Collective, her tentacles writhing with concern. "All communication channels to human space are silent. No response from any human facility, ship, or colony." A murmur rippled through the assembled delegates. The Saurian representative leaned forward in his massive chair, his scaled hide catching the light. "Define silent, Kith. Are their systems down?" "Unknown," Kith admitted. "The channels are active, but no one answers. It's as if every human in the galaxy suddenly stopped talking." Admiral Korath of the Draconic Federation stood, his wings partially extended in alarm. "My fleet reports the same. All scheduled cargo runs with human vessels have been cancelled. Trade stations in human sectors have gone dark. Even the automated beacons are offline." Vexitar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. Humans controlled some of the most important trade routes in the galaxy. Their sudden silence could mean economic disaster for dozens of species. "When did this begin?" he asked. "Approximately 72 hours ago," Theta 9 responded after consulting their internal databases. "The last confirmed human transmission was a routine shipping manifest from the colony on Kepler 442b. "And nothing since?" "Nothing, Chairman." The chamber erupted in worried conversation. Representatives spoke in dozens of languages, creating a chaos of sound that the translation system struggled to process. Vextar raised all 6 arms for silence. "Could this be some kind of technical failure?" asked Dr. Yilmaz, the artificial intelligence representing the Machine Confederation. "A coordinated system crash affecting all human technology simultaneously?" Ambassador Kith's tentacles curled thoughtfully. "Highly unlikely. Human technology is distributed across thousands of worlds and space stations. A simultaneous failure would require either an unprecedented technical disaster or deliberate action. Sabotage." Korath's voice carried a dangerous edge. "If someone has attacked human space, it's an act of war against the entire council." "Or," interrupted a quiet voice from the back. They chose to leave. All eyes turned to Ambassador Mira of the Pacifist Alliance, a small rabbit-like creature whose species rarely spoke during sessions. Her large eyes reflected the chamber's lights as she continued. "Humans have been increasingly isolated in recent votes. Their proposals for council reform have been rejected repeatedly. Perhaps they decided they no longer wished to participate." Vextar's tail lashed. "Impossible. No species has ever left the council voluntarily. The economic and political benefits are too great. Yet their chair remains empty," Mira observed softly. The truth of her words hung heavy in the air. Vextar accessed the council's communication network, sending urgent messages to intelligence services across the galaxy. Surely someone had to know what happened to humanity. As the session continued, reports trickled in from various sources. The ethereal collective's spies found no signs of conflict in human space. The Mechanical Alliance's sensors detected no weapon signatures or debris fields. Everything suggested that humanity had simply vanished. By the session's end, Vextar had authorized a full investigation. A joint task force would be assembled to enter human territory and discover the truth. The economic implications alone demanded immediate action. As delegates filed out, their conversations buzzed with theories. Some blamed enemy action. Others suggested a mass evacuation due to some unknown threat. A few whispered about human separatist movements, though such ideas had never gained traction. Vextar remained in his chair long after the chamber emptied, staring at the vacant seat in Section 12. Chen's absence felt like a missing tooth, a gap that made everything else feel wrong. He thought back to their last private conversation, just after the previous session. Chen had seemed tired, more worn down than usual. He had expressed frustration with the Council's direction, particularly the recent votes to expand military authority and reduce individual species' autonomy. Sometimes I wonder if we're building something better or just replacing old tyrannies with new ones, Chen had said. At the time, Vextar had dismissed it as typical human idealism. Now he wondered if it had been a warning. The next morning brought more disturbing news. The Galactic Trade Commission reported massive disruptions as human-operated shipping routes went silent. Several species that relied heavily on human-manufactured goods were already facing shortages. More troubling were the technical failures. Systems across the galaxy were beginning to malfunction in subtle ways. Translation protocols developed by human linguists were producing errors. Navigation systems that incorporated human improvements were showing decreased accuracy. It was as if a support network that no one had noticed was quietly falling apart. Vextar called an emergency meeting of the Council's Executive Committee. The 12 most powerful species gathered in the smaller council chamber, their faces grim. "The situation is worse than we initially thought," he announced. "Preliminary analysis suggests human disappearance will cause significant disruption across multiple sectors." Admiral Korath leaned forward. "How significant?" "Trade networks may collapse within weeks. Several key technologies were more dependent on human input than we realized, and without their diplomatic expertise." Vextar's voice trailed off. Humans had served as mediators in countless disputes. Their unique perspective and patient negotiation style had prevented dozens of conflicts from escalating to war. Without them, old tensions were already beginning to resurface. "Find them," ordered Empress Vayala of the hegemony, her crystalline form pulsing with authority. "Use whatever resources necessary. The stability of the galaxy may depend on it." Vextar nodded, but privately he wondered if it was already too late. Humanity's sudden absence had created a void that went far deeper than anyone had imagined. They had been quiet participants in council affairs, rarely demanding attention or claiming credit. Now their silence spoke louder than any words ever could. As he prepared to authorize the largest search operation in galactic history, Vextar couldn't shake the feeling that they were missing something crucial. Humanity's disappearance felt too complete, too coordinated to be accidental. But if they had chosen to leave, the question remained, where had they gone, and why hadn't they said goodbye? The empty chair in Section 12 seemed to mock him with its silence, holding secrets that the galaxy desperately needed to understand. Captain Zara Thelmore stood at the observation deck of the investigation vessel Truthseeker, watching the blue marble of Earth grow larger in the view screen. The planet looked exactly as it always had, white clouds swirling over green continents and deep blue oceans. Nothing suggested the mystery that had brought her here. 3 weeks had passed since humanity's disappearance from galactic affairs. The joint task force she commanded included the best investigators from 12 different species. Yet despite their combined expertise, they had found nothing but questions. "Approach vector confirmed," announced Navigator First Class Keth, his metallic voice echoing from the ship's speakers. As one of the Machine Confederation's finest, Keth could process navigation data faster than most biological minds could think. "Any response from Earth's orbital stations?" Zara asked. "Negative, Captain. All facilities appear powered and operational, but no one answers our communications." Zara's scales shifted color slightly, betraying her nervousness. As a Draconic Federation officer, she had commanded vessels through countless dangerous missions. But this felt different. The complete silence from human space was more unsettling than any enemy they had ever faced. "Beginning detailed scans," reported Chief Science Officer Vren, his crystalline body pulsing with processing activity. The crystalline minds were naturally gifted at data analysis, making Vren invaluable to the investigation. The results appeared on the main display moments later. Earth's surface showed normal activity patterns. Cities were lit, transportation networks functioned, automated systems operated as expected. But there were no life signs. No humans anywhere. How is that possible? Whispered Dr. Luna Keth, the investigation team's expert on biological systems. Her tentacles writhed with confusion as she studied the readings. Unknown, Vren replied. However, the absence appears intentional, rather than the result of catastrophe. Infrastructure remains intact. No signs of struggle or forced evacuation. Zara ordered the team to the surface. They descended in multiple shuttles, each targeting a different major city. Zara's team headed for Geneva, where the Human Council embassy had been located. Walking through the empty streets felt like exploring a tomb. Everything was clean, organized, and perfectly maintained. Automated systems continued their routines, keeping the lights on and the air fresh. But the absence of human presence was absolute. "Captain," called Lieutenant Xeris, his insectoid wings buzzing with excitement. "You need to see this." He led her to a public square where a holographic display showed what appeared to be a farewell message. The image flickered to life as they approached, showing Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming standing in what looked like his personal office. "If you are seeing this message," Chen's recorded image said, "it means our departure has been discovered. Please understand that this decision was not made lightly or in haste. We have been planning for many years." Zara felt her blood chill. Years of planning? The implications were staggering. "We leave behind detailed records of our contributions to galactic civilization," Chen continued. "Everything from technological specifications to diplomatic protocols. Consider it our final gift to the council we once served." The message ended abruptly. Zara immediately ordered her team to search for these records. What they found over the following days exceeded all expectations. Humanity had indeed left behind a treasure trove of information, but accessing it revealed uncomfortable truths. The records showed just how deeply human innovation had penetrated galactic civilization. Faster-than-light communication networks relied on quantum algorithms developed by human mathematicians. The universal translation protocols that allowed different species to communicate were based on linguistic theories created by human scholars. Even the Council's voting systems used optimization methods designed by human programmers. They weren't just participants, Dr. Keth observed as they reviewed the data. They were the foundation holding everything together. Vren's crystalline form pulsed rapidly with processing activity. Analysis confirms this assessment. Human contributions to galactic infrastructure exceed those of any other species by a significant margin. But the records revealed more than just technological dependence. They showed a pattern of increasing frustration with the Council's direction. Humanity had repeatedly proposed reforms to make the government more democratic and transparent. Their suggestions were consistently ignored or voted down. Meeting transcripts showed human delegates expressing concern about the Council's growing authoritarianism. They had warned that expanding military powers while reducing individual rights would lead to tyranny. These warnings, too, had been dismissed. "Look at this," Lieutenant Xeris called out, displaying a series of private communications between human officials. They were planning evacuation routes and destination protocols for over a decade. The communications revealed the scope of human preparation. They had quietly established supply caches throughout the galaxy. Hidden manufacturing facilities had been building ships and equipment for years. Most remarkably, they had identified and mapped previously unknown stellar systems beyond the Council's borders. They found somewhere to go, Zara realized. This wasn't desperation. This was a planned relocation. As the investigation expanded to other human worlds, the same pattern emerged everywhere. Pristine facilities abandoned by choice, not force. Detailed records left behind as gifts, and clear evidence of long-term planning. On Mars, they found automated factories still producing goods for galactic markets, but programmed to cease operations in exactly 90 days. On the colony worlds, they discovered educational facilities with lesson plans designed to teach the next generation about life beyond Council space. They were preparing their children for a new beginning, Dr. Keth observed sadly. This wasn't just about leaving. It was about ensuring their species' future somewhere else. The most disturbing discovery came on Titan, where humanity had maintained their primary research facilities. The laboratories were empty, but the computers contained detailed analyses of galactic political trends. The data painted a grim picture of the Council's trajectory toward authoritarian control. Human social scientists had predicted with mathematical precision when the Council would transform from a cooperative alliance into an oppressive empire. Their model suggested it would happen within 50 years unless fundamental reforms were implemented. They saw what we were becoming, Zara said quietly, staring at the projection displaying humanity's political analysis, and they decided they didn't want to be part of it. Vren processed the information for several minutes before responding. The accuracy of their predictions is remarkable. Current political trends align closely with their models. As the investigation neared its conclusion, Zara found herself in Chen's abandoned office on Earth. Personal items remained on his desk. Family photos, a small plant, a paperweight made from Martian rock. These simple objects somehow made the absence feel more real. A hidden compartment in the desk revealed one final message, this one addressed specifically to whoever would lead the investigation. Chen's image appeared once more, but this recording felt more personal. To whoever finds this, he said, I hope you understand that we harbor no hatred for the Council or its member species. We simply could no longer participate in something that contradicted our fundamental values. He paused, looking directly at the camera with tired but determined eyes. We offered partnership and you demanded submission. We proposed cooperation and you chose domination. We believe in democracy, but watched you embrace authoritarianism. We had to choose between our principles and our place in galactic society. The recording ended with coordinates, but not to find humanity. Instead, they led to memorial sites the humans had established on various worlds, documenting the history of galactic cooperation before the Council's transformation. Zara transmitted her findings to the Council, knowing the implications would shake the foundation of galactic government. Humanity hadn't been kidnapped, conquered, or destroyed. They had made a calculated decision to leave a political system they could no longer support. As the Truth Seeker departed Earth for the final time, Zara couldn't help but wonder if humanity had made the right choice. The evidence suggested they had seen clearly what others had missed or ignored. The galaxy they left behind was already beginning to fracture without their stabilizing influence. Perhaps, she thought, that had been their final message. Sometimes the most powerful statement isn't what you say, but what you choose to leave behind. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened exactly 48 hours after Captain Thelmore submitted her investigation report. The great chamber hummed with tension as representatives filed in, their conversations a mixture of worry and disbelief. Chairman Vextar took his position at the central podium, his 6 arms moving in formal gestures while his 3 eyes surveyed the assembled delegates. The empty chair in Section 12 seemed to draw everyone's attention like a black hole. Distinguished colleagues, Vextar began, his voice carrying across the crystal walls. We gather today to discuss findings that will challenge everything we thought we knew about our alliance. Captain Thelmore stepped forward, her draconic features composed despite the magnitude of what she was about to reveal. Behind her, holographic displays showed images from the investigation, empty human cities, abandoned research facilities, and the countless records left behind. Humanity's disappearance was not the result of catastrophe or enemy action, she announced. They left voluntarily after decades of careful planning. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Representative after representative demanded explanation, their voices blending into chaos until Vextar called for order. Continue. Captain, he commanded. Thelmore activated the main display, showing excerpts from the records humanity had left behind. The evidence indicates they began planning their departure over 20 years ago. They identified new stellar systems beyond our borders, established supply networks, and gradually prepared their entire civilization for relocation. Counselor Theta 9's crystalline form pulsed with processing activity. What was their stated reason for this unprecedented action? The captain's expression grew somber. Political disagreement with the Council's direction. They believed we were transforming from a cooperative alliance into an authoritarian empire. Silence fell over the chamber. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud, touching every delegate present. Admiral Korath of the Draconic Federation rose from his massive chair. That's impossible. The Council has always operated democratically, with full representation for all member species. Has it? Asked a quiet voice from the back. Ambassador Mira of the Pacifist Alliance stepped into the central speaking area. Her small frame seemed dwarfed by the chamber's enormity, but her words carried clearly. When did we last seriously consider a proposal from a smaller species? When did we last modify council procedures based on member concerns rather than the wishes of the most powerful factions? Her question sparked angry responses from several delegates, but Mira continued undaunted. In the past 10 years, this council has expanded military authority, reduced individual species autonomy, and centralized power in the hands of a few dominant civilizations. The humans warned us repeatedly about these changes. Captain Thelmore nodded grimly. The records show extensive documentation of human proposals for reform, constitutional amendments to protect minority rights, transparency requirements for council operations, limits on military authority. All were rejected. She activated another display showing voting records from recent sessions. The pattern was undeniable. Humanity had consistently advocated for democratic reforms, while the majority voted to consolidate power. They saw what we were becoming, Thelmore continued, and decided they couldn't be part of it. Empress Vayala of the hegemony stood, her crystalline form radiating authority. Even if their concerns had merit, abandonment is not the solution. Loyal members work within the system to create change. They tried, Ambassador Mira replied softly. For decades they tried, but we didn't listen. The displays shifted to show human diplomatic efforts over the past 20 years. Ambassador Chen and his predecessors had authored countless proposals, attended endless committees, and negotiated tirelessly for reform. The documentation was exhaustive and heartbreaking. Dr. Yilmaz of the Machine Confederation processed the data for several seconds before speaking. Analysis indicates human reform proposals would have significantly improved council efficiency and member satisfaction. Why were they consistently rejected? The question sparked uncomfortable silence. Vextar found himself remembering countless sessions where human proposals were dismissed as idealistic or impractical. At the time, it had seemed reasonable to focus on more immediate concerns. But viewed collectively, the pattern revealed a disturbing truth. The council had indeed been consolidating power, expanding military authority, and reducing individual freedoms. The changes had been gradual, each decision seemingly reasonable in isolation. Perhaps, suggested Councillor Kith of the Zephyrian Collective, we should examine the specific nature of their concerns. Captain Thelmore activated a new display showing humanity's final political analysis. The projection detailed the Council's transformation over the past century, documenting the gradual shift from cooperative alliance to centralized authority. They created mathematical models predicting our political evolution, she explained. According to their calculations, the Council would become a full authoritarian state within 50 years unless fundamental reforms were implemented. The models were sophisticated, incorporating economic factors, military expansion, political centralization, and social dynamics. Most disturbing was their accuracy in predicting past events. Every major political shift in recent decades had been anticipated by human analysts. Their predictions for the future are equally detailed, Thelmore continued. Increased military spending, reduced individual rights, elimination of dissenting voices, and eventual transformation into an empire ruled by the most powerful species. Representative after representative studied the projections in growing horror. The mathematical precision was undeniable, and the trajectory was terrifying. Ambassador Korik of the insectoid hives buzzed with agitation. Even if their analysis is correct, desertion remains inexcusable. They abandoned their responsibilities to galactic civilization. Did they? Asked Captain Thelmore. She activated a new set of displays showing the extent of human contributions to galactic infrastructure. The scope was staggering. Communication networks, transportation systems, medical technologies, educational programs, conflict resolution protocols, trade optimization algorithms. Humanity's innovations formed the backbone of modern galactic civilization. They didn't just participate, Thelmore observed. They were the foundation everything else was built on. And they left it all behind as a gift. The records showed detailed specifications for every human-developed technology, complete with maintenance instructions and improvement suggestions. They had essentially donated their entire technological heritage to the species they were leaving behind. Why would they do that? Whispered Dr. Luna Keth of the Biological Research Consortium. Captain Thelmore played one final recording, this one showing Ambassador Chen in his personal farewell message. We leave behind our contributions to galactic civilization not as payment for past grievances, but as hope for future redemption, Chen's image said. Perhaps when you understand what you have lost, you will remember what you once aspired to be. The message continued with devastating precision. We do not hate you. We do not seek revenge. We simply cannot participate in the construction of tyranny, even if that tyranny might be comfortable for us. Our principles matter more than our place in your society. As the recording ended, the chamber fell into profound silence. The implications of Chen's words were clear. Humanity had sacrificed their position in galactic civilization rather than compromise their values. Chairman Vextar found himself remembering his private conversations with Chen over the years. The ambassador had always been polite, professional, and constructive. His warnings about political trends had seemed like harmless idealism. Now those warnings appeared prophetic. "What do we do now?" asked Admiral Korath, his voice unusually subdued. The question hung unanswered. Humanity was gone, taking with them not just their technological expertise but their moral compass. The Council faced a choice: acknowledge their concerns and implement reforms, or continue down the path toward authoritarianism. As delegates began filing out, their conversations were notably muted. The empty chair in Section 12 had become a symbol of something larger than absence. It represented the cost of ignoring inconvenient truths and the price of choosing power over principles. Vextar remained in the chamber long after the session ended, staring at the vacant seat where Chen had once sat. For the first time in his long political career, he wondered if they had made a terrible mistake. The humans were gone, but their final message was clear. Sometimes the most powerful protest is simply walking away. 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy was falling apart. Commander Yarix of the Saurian Empire stood on the bridge of the warship Dominant Force, watching enemy vessels approach through the view screen. Across the void, the Avian Confederacy's fleet moved into attack formation, their sleek ships gleaming like predatory birds. "All weapons charged and ready," reported his tactical officer. Yarix nodded grimly. The Kepler sector dispute had been dormant for over a century, kept peaceful through human mediation. Without Ambassador Chen's diplomatic expertise, old hatreds had quickly resurfaced. "Fire at will," he commanded. The battle erupted in brilliant flashes of energy weapons and exploding hulls. Within hours, dozens of ships from both sides were destroyed, their crews lost to a conflict that could have been resolved through negotiation just months earlier. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The crystalline mines and the gaseous collectives had resumed their ancient territorial disputes. The Machine Confederation was at war with 3 different biological species over resource rights. Even the peaceful ethereal assembly had been forced to mobilize defensive fleets. Without human mediators, the galaxy's carefully maintained balance was collapsing. On the Council homeworld, Chairman Vextar reviewed the daily reports with growing despair. His 3 eyes tracked the scrolling text while his tail twitched with anxiety. Trade networks had collapsed as human-operated shipping routes went silent. The sophisticated logistics systems that had managed interstellar commerce for decades were failing without human oversight. Several species were already experiencing critical shortages of essential goods. More troubling were the technical failures. Communication systems across the galaxy were degrading as human-developed protocols became corrupted without regular updates. Translation errors were causing diplomatic incidents between species that had been allies for generations. "Chairman," announced his aide, a young Zephyrian whose tentacles writhed with stress, "the Draconic Federation is requesting emergency assistance. Their planetary defense networks are malfunctioning." Vextar closed his 3 eyes wearily. The Draconics had always prided themselves on their military strength, but their weapon systems relied heavily on human-designed targeting algorithms. Without regular updates, the systems were becoming unreliable. "Contact the Machine Confederation," he instructed. "Perhaps they can provide technical support." "Already tried, sir. They're dealing with their own crisis. Their industrial automation networks have been failing since the humans left." The scope of the problem was staggering. Human technology had been quietly integrated into every aspect of galactic civilization, from the quantum computers that managed interstellar banking to the environmental systems that maintained habitable conditions on countless worlds. Human innovations were everywhere, and now they were failing. Dr. Yilmaz of the Machine Confederation had attempted to reverse engineer human technologies, but the task was overwhelming. Humanity's approach to problem-solving was fundamentally different from other species. Where others focused on specialized solutions, humans had created interconnected systems that worked together in complex harmony. It's like trying to understand a symphony by examining individual notes. Dr. Yilmaz had explained to the Emergency Technical Committee, each human innovation was designed to work with dozens of others. Without understanding the whole system, we can't maintain the parts. The economic implications were devastating. The Galactic Trade Commission estimated that commerce had dropped by 60% in just 6 months. Species that had enjoyed prosperity for centuries were facing economic collapse. But the social consequences were even worse. Without human social scientists and their conflict resolution methods, old prejudices were resurging. Species that had learned to coexist peacefully were rediscovering ancient hatreds. On the frontier world of New Babylon, riots had broken out between the insectoid hives and the mammalian collective over water rights. Similar conflicts were erupting throughout the galaxy, as the careful social balance maintained by human diplomats disintegrated. "We need to bring them back," Admiral Korath declared during an emergency session of the Council's Military Committee. His massive form dominated the conference table as he spoke. "Deploy the fleet to find them. Negotiate their return." "With what?" asked Captain Thelmore bitterly. "Our technology is failing. Our economy is collapsing. Our military forces are fighting each other instead of working together. What do we have to offer them?" The truth was painful but undeniable. The galaxy that humanity had left behind was proving incapable of maintaining the civilization they had helped build. Counselor Theta 9 processed data from across the known galaxy before speaking. Analysis indicates systemic failure across multiple sectors. Without human technical expertise, current galactic infrastructure will be unsustainable within 18 months. 18 months until complete civilizational collapse. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. "There has to be something we can do," insisted Empress Vayala of the hegemony. "We are the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Surely we can solve these problems without human assistance." But the evidence suggested otherwise. Each day brought new failures, new conflicts, new evidence of humanity's irreplaceable role in galactic society. They hadn't been just another member species. They had been the invisible foundation holding everything together. Ambassador Mira of the Pacifist Alliance spoke quietly from her corner of the chamber. "Perhaps the question isn't how to fix these problems, but why they exist in the first place." Her words drew confused stares from the other delegates. "The humans didn't just provide technological solutions," she continued. "They provided a different way of thinking. While we competed for dominance, they sought cooperation. While we built hierarchies, they created networks. While we focused on immediate gains, they planned for long-term stability. The observation was uncomfortable but accurate. Human approaches to problem-solving had consistently emphasized collaboration, sustainability, and long-term thinking. Other species had dismissed these methods as inefficient or idealistic. Now, without that moderating influence, the galaxy's natural tendencies toward competition and conflict were reasserting themselves with devastating results. "So, what do you suggest?" asked Chairman Vextar. "We learn," Mira replied simply. "We study the records they left behind. We understand not just their technologies, but their philosophies. We become the species they hoped we could be." It was a daunting prospect. Learning to think like humans would require fundamental changes in how each species approached politics, economics, and social relationships. It would mean abandoning traditional power structures and embracing unfamiliar concepts like genuine democracy and cooperative problem-solving. Dr. Luna, Keth of the Biological Research Consortium, had been studying human social patterns for months. Her findings were both fascinating and disturbing. Human society was built on concepts that most of our species consider weaknesses, she reported. Compromise instead of domination, empathy instead of exploitation, long-term planning instead of immediate gratification. These traits had made humans effective mediators and innovators. They approached problems by seeking solutions that benefited everyone, not just themselves. Other species had viewed this as naive idealism. But without that idealism, galactic civilization was proving unsustainable. The irony, Dr. Keth continued, is that human weakness was actually their greatest strength. By refusing to dominate others, they became indispensable to everyone. As the months passed, the crisis deepened. More conflicts erupted. More systems failed. More species faced the prospect of returning to isolated, primitive existence. The empty chair in Section 12 of the Council Chamber had become a shrine of sorts. Delegates would pause there, perhaps hoping for some insight into humanity's unique perspective. But the chair remained stubbornly vacant, offering no easy answers. Chairman Vextar found himself visiting Chen's abandoned office regularly. The human ambassador's personal items remained exactly as he had left them. Family photos, a small plant that somehow continued to thrive, and a paperweight made from Martian rock on the desk. Vextar had placed a single data crystal containing all of humanity's final gifts to the galaxy, thousands of years of accumulated knowledge freely given to the species they were leaving behind. It was perhaps the most generous act in galactic history, and they had done it while walking away from everything they had helped build. As he stared at the crystal, Vexitar wondered if humanity had known this would happen. Had they foreseen the chaos their departure would cause? Had they hoped it would force the remaining species to confront uncomfortable truths about their own nature? If so, their plan was working. The galaxy was learning through bitter experience what it meant to lose its conscience. 1 year after humanity's disappearance, the galaxy received its final gift from Earth's children. The message arrived simultaneously across every communication device in known space. From the smallest personal communicators to the massive transmitters that coordinated interstellar traffic, every piece of technology capable of receiving signals activated at exactly the same moment. Chairman Vextar was in his private office when his desk display flickered to life without warning. His 3 eyes focused on the screen as a familiar face appeared. Ambassador Chen Wei-Ming, looking older and more weathered than when they had last spoken. "Citizens of the galaxy," Chen began, his voice carrying the weight of finality. "If you are receiving this message, it means exactly 1 year has passed since our departure. This transmission is automated and untraceable, so please do not waste resources attempting to locate its source." Across the galaxy, billions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen. In the council chambers, delegates abandoned their heated debate over trade route failures. On warships locked in combat, crews paused their battles to hear humanity's final words. "By now," Chen continued, "you have experienced the consequences of our absence. Your trade networks have collapsed. Your technologies are failing. Your ancient conflicts have resumed. We did not cause these problems, but our presence had been masking them for decades." The ambassador's image seemed to look directly at each viewer, his expression filled with sadness rather than anger. "We want you to understand that we do not celebrate your struggles. We take no pleasure in the difficulties you face. The chaos consuming your civilizations brings us no satisfaction." Chairman Vexitar felt his heart clench at the genuine sorrow in Chen's voice. This was not the message of enemies gloating over their adversaries' downfall. This was the farewell of disappointed friends. "We left not because we hated you, but because we could no longer participate in what you were becoming. You asked us to choose between our principles and our place in galactic society. We chose our principles." The display shifted to show images from across human space over the past year. Thriving colonies under alien stars. Children playing in parks on worlds beyond the galactic rim. Scientists making discoveries in laboratories built far from council oversight. "We have not merely survived our exile," Chen explained. "We have flourished. Free from the political constraints of council membership, we have made advances that would have taken centuries under your bureaucratic systems." The images were both beautiful and heartbreaking. Humanity had not just found new worlds. They had built a new civilization based on the cooperative principles the council had rejected. "But this message is not about us," Chen continued, his expression becoming more serious. "It is about you, about the choices you face and the future you will create." The transmission showed archived footage from the council chambers over the past year. Delegates arguing, species withdrawing from cooperative agreements, military forces mobilizing against former allies. The deterioration was stark and undeniable. "The galaxy we left behind is not the galaxy we helped build," Chen observed sadly. "You have abandoned the values that made your alliance strong. You have chosen conflict over cooperation, domination over partnership, immediate gratification over long-term stability. On the bridge of the warship Dominant Force, Commander Yarix watched the message with growing unease. His ship was currently bombarding avian positions in what had once been a peaceful sector. The irony was not lost on him. "We gave you our technologies, our innovations, our diplomatic expertise," Chen continued. "But we could not give you our values. Those you had to choose for yourselves." The ambassador paused, allowing his words to sink in across the galaxy. "And you chose poorly." The bluntness of the statement hit like a physical blow. There was no malice in Chen's voice, just the tired disappointment of a teacher watching promising students fail. "Your current path leads to the destruction of everything we built together. Within 2 years, your alliance will collapse completely. Individual species will retreat into isolation, abandoning the dream of galactic civilization." Dr. Yilmaz of the Machine Confederation processed the prediction against current data trends. The analysis was mathematically sound. Without fundamental changes, civilizational collapse was inevitable. "But it doesn't have to be this way," Chen said, his expression brightening slightly. "You still have time to choose a different path. You can remember what you once aspired to be." The display showed the coordinates humanity had provided a year earlier, marking the locations of memorial sites they had established throughout the galaxy. "We have left behind more than just technological specifications and diplomatic protocols. On 17 worlds, we have created museums documenting the early history of the Galactic Council. They show what your alliance was before it became what it is now." Chen's image leaned forward, speaking with the intensity of someone delivering a crucial message. "Visit these sites. Study your own history. Remember when your alliance was built on cooperation rather than coercion. Remember when diversity was celebrated rather than suppressed. Remember when the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them." The transmission showed brief glimpses of these memorial sites. Vast halls filled with historical records, interactive displays showing the Council's founding principles, and archives documenting humanity's role in building galactic civilization. "These museums contain detailed plans for reforming your government," Chen explained. "Constitutional amendments that would restore democratic principles. Legal frameworks that would protect minority rights. Economic systems that would promote cooperation over competition." He paused again, his expression becoming grave. "But we will not return to help you implement these changes. That choice is yours alone. We have given you the tools. Whether you use them depends on your wisdom and courage." The message was clear. Humanity had provided a roadmap for redemption, but the galaxy would have to walk that path without them. "Some of you may ask why we don't simply return and help repair what has been broken," Chen anticipated. "The answer is that our presence would not solve the fundamental problem. As long as we remained, you could continue to rely on us instead of confronting your own shortcomings." Ambassador Mira of the Pacifist Alliance understood the logic perfectly. Humanity's return would only delay the inevitable reckoning. The galaxy needed to learn these lessons on its own. "Our departure was not punishment," Chen clarified. "It was education. Sometimes the most valuable lesson is learning what you lose when you abandon your principles." The transmission began to wind down, but Chen's final words carried across the galaxy with the weight of prophecy. "You now face the same choice we faced a year ago. You can continue down your current path toward tyranny and collapse, or you can remember what made your alliance great in the first place." His image stood, moving away from the camera as if preparing to leave for the final time. "The memorial sites will remain active for exactly 100 years. After that, they will self-destruct, taking with them our final gift to your civilization. What you do with that century is entirely up to you." Chen paused at what appeared to be a doorway, turning back for one last look at the camera. "We hope you choose wisely. The galaxy deserves better than what it has become. More importantly, you deserve better." The transmission ended with coordinates to the nearest memorial site and a simple message. "The future is yours to write." As communication systems across the galaxy fell silent, the impact of humanity's final message began to sink in. They had not returned as saviors or conquerors. Instead, they had offered something far more valuable: the opportunity for redemption. Chairman Vextar sat in his office for a long time after the message ended, staring at the coordinates displayed on his screen. The nearest memorial site was only 3 days' travel away. For the first time in months, he felt something that had been absent from galactic politics for far too long: Hope. The empty chair in Section 12 would remain vacant, but perhaps its message had finally been heard. Humanity had shown them the path forward. Whether the galaxy would have the courage to take it remained to be seen. But for the first time since that terrible day when Chen Wei-Ming's chair stood empty, change seemed possible. The galaxy's children had grown up and left home, but they had not abandoned their family entirely. They had simply given them one final chance to become worthy of the civilization they had all built together.